Hello, welcome back to the Business Excellence Summit. Today we also have a really great topic that we're going to talk about, which is the limitations of perfectionism. I'm pretty sure you all have had problems with perfectionism where you procrastinate getting something out because you were trying to be perfect. So this is the topic that we're going to talk about, and our guest expert today is Kim O'Neill. So she's going to share a lot of great content, a lot of great tips, tools, strategies with us on how we can, get rid of our procrastination because we want to be perfect. So with that said, let me introduce you to Kim O'Neill. Hello, Kim. Thanks for being here. Great to have you.
Hi, Kay. Thank you for having me on your summit. This is exciting.
Yes, most definitely. So, but before we get into the topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, how you got started, and why you love what you do.
Absolutely. So I've been coaching for about 5 years, and it's started out where I was helping people to prepare for employment interviews. I had this huge desire to assist people in some form, and I knew that I wanted to have formal education for coaching as well. But I said, you know what, I can't wait for that to happen and me to find the right school and research all that and go through that whole process. I have to get started right now. So I started with what I knew, and that was helping people prepare for employment interviews. And about a year into that, that's when I found the right program for me, and I started on my professional coach journey. And so it started out where I was helping them prepare for employment interviews, and then moved into more personal coaching because I realized that the real work of preparing for an employment interview had to do with going much deeper inside. It's not just about, how do I answer this interview question? How, what does it mean when the interviewer says this or does that, doesn't look at me? All of those things. It goes a lot deeper, working on those inner gremlins. And what's interesting is, of course, as you're going through your own process, your own coach education, coaching other people, helping them, move through their own blocks, you, of course, inevitably have to work on all of your own stuff as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
it's inevitable, or however you say that.
It is inevitable, absolutely. So one of the things that of course came up for me is my own perfectionism. And that's something that I've known ever since I was a kid that I had. And, from simply, having a friend over for a sleepover and getting stressed out if they move something on my bookshelf.
That's also called OCD.
It is OCD, yes, exactly. And realizing that, okay, this doesn't work. This is not I'm not gonna be able to take this with me through my life. And so I've been working on it ever since then. So today I call myself a recovering perfectionist. And because I've learned that it's something that it doesn't just end the second you say, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to allow myself to be easier on myself. So it's something that I've been working through for many, many years. And it's limiting. I mean, the reason why we're talking about the limitations of it is because it's incredibly limiting to constantly say that there's only one way you can do anything. And it slows us down a lot. So, I wanted to talk about this on your summit today because entrepreneurs, when we're starting off, we're wearing all the hats. And if we are allowing perfectionism to play a role in everything that we do, it could be years before we actually start to see the benefits of our efforts and to, actually experience the joy and fulfillment that we seek by actually moving into entrepreneurship. So that's why I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, most definitely. So I definitely would like to maybe paint a picture. What does it look like being a perfectionist? Maybe you can give some examples, because maybe some of the listeners, they're like, I'm not a perfectionist, but then there might be in certain areas that maybe I am, more on the perfectionist side. So, can you paint a little picture, for us to see, okay, what exactly does it mean being a perfectionist, and how does it really limit us from, going out and doing what we're meant to do?
Well, being a perfectionist can look like spending hours on one simple newsletter. It can look like you've taken a bazillion different courses, you know how to do what you do, and yet it's not quite good enough to actually promote yourself, to actually put yourself out there and connect with people that you can actually serve. And it shows up in a whole variety of things. So those are just two examples. But the reason why it's limiting is because it slows us down big time. It slows us down. That's not to say that, if it takes you hours to create one newsletter, that you have to be a perfectionist. No, it could be, maybe you're getting used to the system that you're using. Maybe, there could be a whole myriad of reasons, right? But this is how I've seen it show up in my life is, oh, okay, I think I've spent way too long on this one newsletter announcing one thing to my audience. So, the other thing is that it can tend to create a false face of who you are, what you do. And other people, they might be aware of it or not, but they can start to pick up on, okay, something's off. What's going on with this person? And so it may start to inhibit the connection that you have with your audience as well. And you may not quite know why. They may not quite know why. And they might even start to, for those that aren't quite seeing that, they might start to actually expect you to show up in a certain way. So it really comes down to being mindful and aware of, our shadow side, of what's going on with us inside from all different angles, so that we can allow ourselves to be who we are and do the good work that we want to do to serve others and be that entrepreneur.
So you said two things that I kind of want to touch on. I mean, first of all, you do talk about the perfectionism. What do you think is the cause of, waiting for so long, or trying to, make the newsletter or video or whatever so perfect? What do you think is the root cause for being stuck in that whole perfectionism mode?
I think it's going to be different for every person, but I know that for myself and for a lot of other people, it can tend to have roots in their childhood. Of maybe, being scolded about making a mistake in whatever it was that they did. It could also just be from their own desire to want approval, want to, be seen and liked, things of that nature. There's another example from my childhood that I'd like to share that just stands out so much to me. So I had a lot of this growing up as a kid, realizing that, I thought there was only one way to do everything, basically. And there was a period in my life where I went to live with my stepmom. And one day I was doing the dishes. We all left the house, so I set the dishwasher to run. We all left the house to run an errand. When we came back, the kitchen floor was filled with suds. Yes.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was a disaster. Oh my gosh, I could just even, recall what that felt like within me. Huge anxiety and fear because I had made this error in, I didn't know that there's a difference between dishwashing detergent and dish soap. Yeah, exactly. So,
I think I've done that one before too.
And so something so simple. I was probably about 11 or 12 years old at the time, and obviously put dish soap in the dishwasher. And I was horrified at the sight of white suds all over our huge kitchen floor. And my stepmom simply walked in and said, okay, not a big deal. Let's get some towels. We'll wipe it up. And that was that. And it was such a huge learning moment for me to go, oh my goodness, I can make what feels like an astronomical mistake on my part, and the world's not going to end. Someone else is not going to necessarily view it the same way that I would. And so that shows up, now as an adult as well, in terms of, let's say I send a newsletter out and, oh my goodness, one of my links didn't work. Now, some people might think that that's not a big deal. Someone else who's a perfectionist is going to be like, oh my gosh, now I have to send a second email with the correct link. And there's so much that's bottled up into one instance like that. So one thing that I've had to learn for myself is to be deliberately imperfect, to allow myself to say, okay, we're going to stop because I'm doing that thing again where how long have I taken to, send out a newsletter, or just prepare to record a video, or let's see, I've been wanting to do a program, create a program for a very long time now. How many times have people heard me say that? And when is it finally going to get out there for people to sign up?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So being aware of those things in myself and noticing when I'm falling into some of those old patterns, old behaviors, has helped me to go, oh, I'm doing it again right now. And to sort of stand back, take a more observer perspective of what's going on and say, you know what? It's okay. I can try that just good enough thing for a while and see if that switches something up. Like that whole definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and nothing's, right, seeing the same results or expecting the same results. So, okay, what would be different than continuing to expect perfection? Well, how about we actually deliberately choose to say, yeah, this isn't perfect and it's time. We're going to put this out there and allow it to be good enough.
And I think nowadays people don't want perfection. I mean, I think like when I see a video or something like that, and they didn't make any mistakes. I'm pretty sure they've sat there for hours. I remember one time I actually saw a post on Facebook. A lady said that she had tried to redo this video 70 times. I'm like, are you serious? I know for myself, and maybe it's different for you or for everyone else that's listening, but when I do a video, I'm in the mood, I'm in the zone when I just talk. And then if I make a mistake, I'm like, oh crap, now I got to redo this again. I'm not in the same vibration no more. Then I'm going to mess up. And I actually realized the more I try to make it perfect, the more I get frustrated with it and it doesn't work. So one of the things that I've done was, if it really was so horrible that I'm like, no, I can't even listen to it, I really take a step back and maybe try it again tomorrow, or maybe that topic wasn't meant to go out. But that's for me, I think if the more time you spend on making it perfect, the more imperfect it becomes, because then the frustration will show up. Or how do you feel about that?
I completely agree. That's the perfection of imperfection, is that the imperfection, it has its natural authenticity. It has all the zest of who you are, because what you do is inherently part of who you are. And so the more that we try to actually perfect something, we start to strip away all those aspects of who we are that actually allow what you're putting out there to connect with your audience and whoever's meant to see it. So that's what I've noticed too. And this is, I do want to just throw in there, this is not to say that there isn't value in being detailed, isn't value in wanting to have, having high expectations of what you put and wanting to put out a high quality product. That, I think the reason why people buy from people is because they can tell that they're going to receive a high quality product. However, I think it's the reframing of how we view high quality and value that allows us to see that, oh my goodness, the natural flaws that appear in what we think is imperfection is actually what's giving its oomph, right? That special energy that's drawing other people to us. So yeah, the more that we try and take, 50 million takes of the same video or whatever it might be, we start to lose some of that. So I would agree with that.
So it kind of sounds like, earlier you were talking about the false face. So I'm guessing that's basically what you're talking about. Or can you elaborate a little bit on that, for those people that never heard? I never even heard that either.
Well, and that's my term, but I think that's how it starts to show up, is that the more we try to be perfect, as we're kind of losing who we are, right? Our essence. And then other people start to think that, oh, that's who Kim is, or that's who this person is. This maybe you appear to be stoic. Maybe you appear to be kind of just always serious. And always, just very, yes, I'm going to show them, right? I'm trying to show them that I know what I'm talking about. So I'm always going to be very serious and right. So it's those kinds of things that then confuse people when they go, oh, the real person is actually someone who's quite playful and fun and silly, right? All these other elements of who you are as a person. It starts to appear as if you're two different people. Mm-hmm. And you don't quite want that, because you want people to be able to see who you are, so they know all of what they're getting when they sign up for your videos, your products, your newsletters, whatever it may be.
No, exactly. One time, like when I was going through my coaching school, like people were like always complaining or, making comments about the way I talk. I mean, I am German. I have this very strong voice and stuff. And then someone actually told me, why don't you go to do work with a voice coach? I considered it, but I was like, but that's not me. I mean, I want people to work with me for who I am. And those people who don't like how I talk, who don't like how strong my voice is or how loud I am or stumble over my words, then they're not meant to work with me. But that was one of the things that I really had to realize. People, they work with me for me, not for how smart I sound or how perfect I sound. I am me. And that was one of the things that really I had to learn. And I was like, told them, look, if you don't like how I sound, oh, well, that's who I am. So I really like how you just explained that, you want to be authentic in, everything that you do.
Absolutely. The other thing that was coming to mind is this memory I have of, let's see, maybe about 5-6 years ago, I had a job that I was also in the process of doing a master's program. So I was working full-time, essentially a full-time graduate student as well, and coming to work and very stressed out because, I had no social life. And so, I had this open relationship with my boss, and I was sharing with her, I'm so stressed out. I see other students in my class because it was one of those combined online in-person formats. I would see other students in my class who would, they would put out their essays, and they didn't seem like they were that high quality, and yet they were getting really positive feedback and high grades from what they were putting out. And so I was talking to my boss about this, and I was very frustrated because I always wanted everything to be, just right, to really represent the kind of work that I can do, what I'm capable of. And she finally said to me in her very non-professional way, she said, Kim, your full ass is someone else's half ass.
I love it.
It's stuck with me ever since then. And that's when it finally sunk in, like, oh, she's so right. So this isn't about lowering your standards and stripping away, what you know and how good you can be and the quality of work you can put forth. But maybe you start to loosen the reins on yourself just enough so that you can actually, do school and work and have a little bit of a social life, or start to feel some ease in your world. And so one of the things, I feel like I took that concept much further, where I started to observe other people and go, okay, this other person, they put out something that, to me, I could see how it wasn't quite perfect. I could see some of its flaws. I think a lot of us can do that. We can go, look at what they did. I can do better. Or, gosh, I'm surprised they put it out that way, right? We have our own judgments that we sometimes impose on other people. But then as you're doing that, notice how people are responding to it. And time again, I would notice, oh my goodness, this person put out something that in my eyes, maybe wasn't the best, and yet they're receiving such massive positive response from people. People are signing up for it. People are loving it. They're connecting with it. And so to me, that was something to really learn from. So whenever I start to notice that I'm falling into, an old pattern of needing things to be a certain way, I go, wait a second, hold on. This, because I feel like anyone who's hearing this message right now can start to say, oh, that sounds good, but I'm, no, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing because it has to be a certain way. Well, take a look at some of the social proof. What are some other people you can think of who are actually, they're just, taking one take on their video and people are signing up and things are moving forward. They're not slowing themselves down. They're allowing themselves to be in that flow and benefit from that flow by knowing that what they already have to offer is good enough. What they have to say is good enough. The other reason, here's the other kind of like the catch-22. I used to think at being good enough meaning that I'm settling. Well, if I say that I'm going to allow something to just be good enough, then I'm just settling. And it's not. It's allowing yourself to have a stepping stone and say, look, where I'm at right now is fantastic. And can I still even improve on this? Absolutely. The fact that I'm delaying something because I think it needs to be perfect, maybe you're here and you think that, well, you're aiming for here, you're aiming for here. This is telling you that you know you still have more to work on, more room to grow and improve. So how about allowing this spot right here, which you know you already have so much, to be good enough so that you can actually now start to progress and get closer to here. Otherwise, if we're constantly, striving for this and never thinking that what we have is good enough to even put out there to begin with, we're never even going to get to that state of perfection anyway.
Exactly. And I mean, you have a radio show and you've done videos and stuff like that. Have you ever gone back to look at the very first ones?
Yes.
If you would know, I mean, if you think about it now, I mean, would you put that out? Probably not, right? But at that point, it was good enough. And I mean, you learn as you go. I mean, I listened to some of my first videos that I did a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh my God, I actually took them down off of YouTube because it was horrible. But it's like, I mean, we got to start somewhere. It's the same with a job. I mean, when you start a job, your very first job, you weren't an expert. You were good enough to get started, and then you molded, you move forward. But I think we get, as entrepreneurs, we want to seem as this perfect entrepreneur, the super successful entrepreneur, because that's what gets us clients. But if you think about it, perfect is not relatable. I cannot relate to a perfect person because, shoot, I'm not perfect. I'm far away from being perfect, but if you follow someone that seems so very perfect, there's a disconnect there, or at least that's how I feel. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I completely agree. I mean, if your goal is to always be perfect and only put out things that you consider to be perfect, who are you going to be connecting with? Well, only other people who also only identify with perfection. And even then, they might think, well, I don't need help. So then maybe they're not going to sign up for your stuff anyway.
Exactly.
The other thing is that, so I think I said something a moment ago that may have implied the opposite of what I'm about to say. So we may be striving for this and never quite get there by not allowing ourselves to think that what we have is good enough, right? And at the same time, to me, the way that I really view it is I actually believe that perfection does exist. And let me explain, because a lot of people, I know we tend to hear that perfection doesn't exist. Well, it's a very subjective thing, right? Perfection for me is not going to be perfection for Kay. It's not going to be perfection for someone else. It's going to be what I consider to be perfection for myself. Have we reached those moments at different times in our life? Certainly. That's when we finally put something out.
Exactly. And I think it really goes back to, what we ourselves perceive as being perfect, not what other people perceive as being perfect, because you can't ever please everyone. There's always going to be one person or many people that are like, that is not good enough. Why did you put it out there? But it goes back to us, what we perceive as perfectionism.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But because it's such a subjective thing, then that means we're essentially looking at our own, vision of perfection through the eyes of judgment, through our own eyes of judgment. So if we're constantly looking at what we're putting out there through the eyes of judgment, then that's going to be a whole room filled with all of our gremlins and anyone else's judgments that we're allowing to be in the room. And how are we ever going to be able to move beyond that how are we ever going to be able to move through that mindset if all those gremlins are constantly lingering in there? Because what we focus on expands. So if we're constantly focused on, well, this isn't good enough because of, this judgment and this judgment and this judgment and this judgment, ultimately, we're just going to be expanding more and more of those judgments and those gremlins. So how are we ever going to be able to actually attain that perfectionism until those gremlins leave the room? And that's where it comes down to. It's up to us. So, it's up to us to decide, well, what are we willing to loosen up a little bit on, to release, so that I can finally just create something and do what I'm here to do. I mean, is the goal to always be perfect, or is the goal to actually accomplish, a much bigger purpose, our bigger why? And I think that's what it boils down to, is knowing what your why is. And is perfectionism today enough to prevent you from making progress on, achieving your why? Or can we let go of some of that because we have somewhere else to be?
I like it. I like it. Now, I mean, do you have some tips as far as what can we do to release those? I mean, I like the word inner gremlins. I think you stole that from me. But what can we do to really release that hold that we have on, trying to be perfect?
I think there's a variety of things that we can do. I think that it helps to actually, make a list of your strengths and your weaknesses. Be honest with yourself and take time to celebrate you for what you are really good at. Because, this isn't to say like you aren't good at anything and you need to just accept being less than. I mean, I say that because I think that's where our head jumps to. For someone who knows they've dealt with perfectionism, you forget all those other things that you're really good at, and you just see the one thing that you're not where you want to be at. So take time to look at, hey, what are you really good at? Celebrate yourself for that, and take some time to appreciate that and celebrate that. Okay, then take a look at some of your weaknesses and know that they're not going to stay that way. It's like anything else. When you take time to work on it, you're going to improve upon it. So take sort of that approach, but also take time to connect with your tribe. Some people, they're doing this entrepreneurship thing, and I can certainly say that I was for a very long time. They're doing it on an island. And so who else do you have to cheer you on, to root for you in your corner? No one but what? Some gremlins who aren't doing such a great job.
Yep.
So, so I think it's really important to connect with find your tribe, connect with them, and have that, maybe a mastermind or team of people that can help celebrate you and support you as you're taking these scary steps to try and do things a little imperfectly. And again, I think it's good to also, look at what other people are doing and allow it to sink in how valuable it can be to put something out there that maybe doesn't look like it's the best thing, and see how actually that imperfect thing actually is the best thing. Because like we said earlier, that's what helps people to connect with you and relate to you. There are 50 million coaches out there in the world. Why do they want to work with you? It's because of who you are. And if you strip that away from what you're putting out there, well then, how are you distinguishing yourself? As an entrepreneur, we all know that it's about, standing out to some degree. It's not but that doesn't mean being perfect. It means, what is the true essence of what you have to offer? And don't disregard the value that you as a human being, as who you are, brings to what you offer your clients.
And I think it's also about finding your own style of doing things.
Yes.
It's not just, I see so many people that follow all these big gurus and do exactly what they're doing. But that's them. I remember when I first started, I was acting, doing like the sales coaching, and I was trying to model my coach at that time. And it just didn't feel right. I really was struggling so bad because that was not me. And it's about, I think with everything that we're putting out, is more about finding our own voice, finding our own method or methodology. I have a hard time with big words, by the way. But that's also a flaw right now. I'm not good enough with that, but I'm good enough to do an interview. But I think it's really just finding our own style. And that's my style. I stutter. I, stumble over words, can't really pronounce big, really words, but I'm German. So I think that's a good enough excuse, right?
It is a good excuse. I agree with that. I think the other interesting aspect of this that came up for me is that, well, how can I be a coach helping people move towards their goals, improve their life? How can I see the value in wellness and moving forward, and then also adopt a perspective that says, okay, where I am right now is good enough? They seemed to not fit for me. So I had to come to the place, okay, how does this fit into my overall, approach to life, and why I coach and help people improve on themselves? And allowing myself to see how that fit in, that's what also supported me in being able to say, it is sufficient to start out at a good enough place, because I too am moving towards something else. You always start with where you're at, and where are you at right now? It's always going to be in that that place you get to before you get to where you want to go. So that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's all a stepping stone. But now let's kind of go to like, more the newer entrepreneurs. What can they do, or what would it look like if they're really stuck in the whole perfection mode? I mean, let's talk. Let's say worst case scenario. What would happen if they're really stuck on this needs to be perfect?
Well, worst case scenario would be someone who says, that's it, forget it, I'm giving up, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm not even going to do it. You're not going to do what you want to do, what you love to do, because you're so stuck on perfection. That to me is the worst case scenario, flat out giving up. Beyond that would be someone who's maybe taking years to finally put their stuff out there. And I can say that certainly has been part of my journey. I know what that's like. The other thing though, I think that everything serves as part of the process. So if it's been taking, if any of the audience here today they can identify with this and know that they've been taking years to put their work out there to show who they are. Look, everything is mindset. And I know, Kay, I know you're really big on mindset. Everything is mindset. So how can you view where you've been up to this point as a lesson? What has it taught you? What have you gained from this? Because I know for many years when I wasn't putting any of my stuff out there, that all these other things were also coming up. It wasn't just perfectionism. It was, oh no, these other people in my life who don't maybe understand this aspect of me, they're going to see it now, and oh my gosh, am I okay with that? And oh, some people, they've already seen it and they don't get it, they don't support it. So then that totally interfered with my process too, and really only got that perfectionism wheel going even stronger for such a long time, because I'm thinking, oh, I need their approval. No, you don't. You don't need their approval. And I think anyone who, if you're going to put yourself out there and want to live the life that you want to live, you're just going to have to accept that there are going to be some people who don't support it. They don't get it. And find that strength within yourself that says, that's okay, because I'm not living my life for them. I'm living it for me. So I'm going to allow myself to experiment with this imperfection thing. And even just using that word experiment, that has allowed me to find some courage in trying something different, taking a risk. Because, well, it's good to experiment, right? When someone experiments with something, gosh, you could actually discover something really exciting and new. And if it didn't work, well, it was just an experiment, right? You can go back to the drawing board and try something different. So finding a different way to reframe, your existing situation, the past, the present, the future, that has also supported me in moving forward. And
I think another thing is like, when we create something, we're too close to it. It's like, it's our baby, we want to nurture it. We want to, make it grow into something nice, but we don't think it's, ready to be out there. But, I've seen it oftentimes happening also with my clients when they put something out there, even though they didn't think it was good enough, people loved it. And they're like, oh my God, it wasn't perfect, but it was perfect enough for people to say, this was amazing. This was perfect. But we oftentimes are so close to our own stuff that we think it is not good enough. But another thing, one of the things that I learned from one of the mentors that I was following, I think it was Lisa Sasowich. She mentioned that you build the plane as you fly it. So you don't just wait until technically if it's a plane, you would want to wait until it's done. But when it comes to, for the analogy, I think she was just using as a business, you build the plane as you fly it, because you don't know what's working. You don't know what people like, but how are you going to know what they don't like, what they like, if you don't put the stuff out? So I think it's all about tweaking and testing, changing things around. Maybe they don't like videos, maybe they rather read a blog, or the other way around. So it's all about testing, but if you don't put nothing out, how can you really test it, right?
Absolutely. Looking at that, when I first started doing video interviews, the very, very first one I did, which was a year ago from today when we're recording this, I did a video with a friend, and it was completely different than any of the other video interviews that I do today. but people loved it because we just infused our personality into the video. It was bizarre to me how much people loved this video and how scared I was to put it out there. Now, ultimately, it wasn't quite the direction I wanted to take my videos, and some things have shifted in both our lives over time. So actually that video is no longer accessible if anyone tries to go and look for it. But what it taught me is how much people connect to playfulness and humor and just allowing things to flow. And so it was interesting, just like you said, Lisa Sasevich said, build the plane as you fly it. I started with, I said I want to do video interviews. Well, how can I really do that and receive feedback if I don't actually put something out there? So I started with just what came to mind in that first video. And as time moved on, some of them started to take on more of a serious tone. And then now today, I actually feel like, well, they've got this balance now of playfulness and, the content that I want to share and the people that I'm interviewing and that sort of thing. So just as you were describing, it's going to evolve over time. Where you are today isn't where you're going to stay.
And even like all these other experts, those, big, gurus out there, they weren't perfect, when they first started. I mean, they had many failures and many mistakes, but they kept going and they perfected their technique, they perfected their message, and now it's rock solid. But it took them probably years to get to where they're at today. And I think some of the things that upsets me nowadays is when you see all these big gurus talk about you need to use my formula, this is what gets you the results, and do it exactly that way. But every person's different. Every person has their own little inner gremlins that, sabotage certain things. One person has perfectionism, the other person doesn't. So do you want to compare the two of them? You can't, because each and every person is different, right?
Absolutely. I'm also a youth mentor. I've been youth mentoring for about 7 years now. And I remember and this was before I started coaching, but I remember in the youth mentorship that they had us go through, the bottom line was, just keep showing up. The mentees, they are way more forgiving than we may think. And I think I honestly think the same is true for our audience. Now, sure, maybe you put something out there that isn't, your best work. It wasn't quite perfect and it turned someone off and they went somewhere else. Yes, it happens. Maybe they weren't meant to be your client in the first place. And so, okay, look at that. You actually did yourself a favor. By putting out what you had at that time, that person went to where they needed to be, and you are still drawing to you the people that are going to resonate with you. That personally is the way that I like to view it. Maybe in time, that one person will come back, but do we want to stay focused on that one person for the rest of our journey? Exactly. And so that's going to be a waste of mental energy. So to not do that. And so I really think that people are more forgiving and more accepting than we tend to give them credit for. And that is also just a reflection of, well, how forgiving and accepting have we been of ourselves? So if we want to look at it on an energy perspective, all these things that we're projecting onto other people and thinking that they're going to think or feel or believe about us, wait a second, to what degree are we thinking and feeling it about ourselves? The more we clear up that kind of stuff, then the easier it's going to be to not even see that or perceive that from other people and connect with them.
Yeah, no, totally. I love it. And this topic was really, really powerful. And I think, we hit on some really good, points that, for the audience, I think it's going to help them see that, you don't need to be perfect to put something out there. Now, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of the interview now. Now, if any one of the audience would like to, get a hold of you, check you out, or just follow you, where can they find you? How can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. They can go to KimO'NeillCoaching.com. And so my last name is O'Neill, KimO'NeillCoaching.com. I've also got, as you mentioned earlier, my internet radio show on BBS Radio is called Every Day is a New Day. So they can hear more about me, the people that I interview, and connect that way as well. I've also got a Facebook page and Twitter page. So there are a variety of locations they can find me. And I'd like to also just touch on, I mentioned earlier at the top of the show that I started out doing interview coaching and then really moved into the personal coaching. And just like you, Kay, I also incorporate a lot of the energy work into my sessions with clients, because that's really where we start to clear out that junk and generate more of what we may not be able to see by going within first. So for those clients who are like, okay, wait a second, I've got a little bit of both going on, you know what? Yeah, I acknowledge that, because I don't think that it's just about what are you doing on the outside. It's about what's going on the inside that is always going to be mirrored on the outside.
I love it. I always say it's not about the doing, it's about the becoming. Who do you need to become in order to become successful? So you're totally speaking my language here. Now, I mean, do you have any like special bonuses, any resources, anything you would like to share with the audience?
I do. So I have a free guided meditation. It's about 13 minutes long. It has some beautiful, peaceful music. It's called Get Grounded. It's called Get Grounded and Regain Inner Peace. Sorry. There was my little imperfection, right? I flubbed on what is it even called? So, and the reason why I have that as a freebie is because I've noticed that it can be so common to get caught up in a headspace. And the key to getting out of this is connecting with your heart, getting grounded, and allowing that energy to flow. So this meditation really supports people in connecting back with that energy and feeling more at ease in their daily life.
Great, love it. Now, in closing, do you have any final thoughts, any final advice, anything you would like to share with me and the audience?
Keep going. Keep going. I think it goes back to what I said earlier. Keep showing up. Don't let your dreams, what is it? Don't let your dreams die on the vine, something like that. Have you heard that?
No, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure there's something out there, but I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, I think it goes back to a quote from Dr. Wayne Dyer, and I'm just connecting with this in the moment right now, but he says something about, don't let your dreams die on the vine. So don't constantly stay stuck in, I'm still figuring it out. I'm still working out the kinks. I'm still in progress, and therefore that's why I'm here and I'm not over there. You do want to accept that you're still in progress and you are in process, but then also choose to take steps from that place. So, having faith, I think that's a big part of this process of undoing perfectionism, is trusting that, you aren't necessarily going to know what the audience, how they're going to respond to what you put out there. So have faith, though, that you are going to be moving forward regardless of how they respond. And I could go on and on, so I'm actually going to stop that there. But to have faith and trust.
One thing.
Yes.
You are good enough.
You are good enough.
How about we leave it at that? We all are good enough, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, that's a great way to close. So, I really want to thank you, Kim, for being here, for, sharing all your wisdom and knowledge with me and the audience. It was definitely great having you. And I'm pretty sure the audience already got a lot out of it as well. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Kay. It was a pleasure to be on your summit. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And also for the listeners, thanks for being here again. And I will see you guys again in the next interview with another great expert, another great topic, and even more valuable tools, tips, strategies to help you up-level your business. So I will see you soon in the next interview.